Yes, sir. And bailiff, you bring jurors in, please.
Do I just need to hit?
Oh.
No.
Mr. Lively?
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And may Deputy Broadwell stand up so we can explain his testimony?
Yes.
Deputy Broadwell, you previously said that you had these pictures that might aid you in your testimony. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit number 1. It's also JPEG 233-6774. Can you describe to the jurors what your vantage point is here and what we're looking at?
So upon arrival at the victim's residence, I'll move my patrol car around this area right here. There's looks like a front porch, a screen door, and then the main door to the house that I initially did my sheriff's office announcement, and that's where I heard the footsteps and the crying.
Yes, sir. And from your dash cam, can you kind of point out where your car was located when you first pulled up?
I believe I first came up, pulled up kind of like this, a little bit to the left, just so I'd have good cover of that door or that deck.
And again, these photographs were taken sometime after you'd already cleared by CCBI. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. If we can move to the next photograph. This is State's Exhibit 2, 233-6783, and this is just a closer view of that same vantage point. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you again point out for the jury where the screened-in porch is and where the front door would have been?
So right here you have the screened-in door. It looks like it's right here, just to the right of that tree. You go in through the screened-in porch, and then directly after you enter the screened-in porch, the main door is right there to the right. If you look closely, you can see part of the window, I believe.
All right. If we can move to State's Exhibit 3. And again, is this just another vantage point of that screened-in porch and the front door?
Yes, sir.
And can you point out for the jurors where the front door would have been within the screened porch?
The door that I made contact with the children and the older brother is right here.
We move to State's Exhibit 4, I believe. And is this just another vantage point of the front side in the house and then into the backyard a little bit?
Yeah, so when facing the residence from Lake Glad, this would be the left part of the residence.
And again, there looks like there's a floodlight here behind the house. And can you describe a couple of the structures that the jury might be able to see back there?
So you have a little bit of a fenced-in area, and then directly behind the residence, there was like 2 or 3 sheds, storage sheds, and there was a few more vehicles, and I believe another shed on the right side.
All right. We'll move to State's Exhibit 5. And can you give us a context or vantage point of what we're looking at here?
So right here, if you remember on the video that you watched earlier, this is where I walked up to and came in through the screen-in doors. Just a closer picture of where I made entry and my announcement, and right there at the front door.
Okay. And so there's an outdoor patio and then a screened-in porch that I guess go along the entire front of the house.
Yes, sir.
And then there's a window on the outdoor patio with a window unit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know what's inside that window or what room that is?
I could not see inside that.
Okay. All right. If we can move, I believe State's Exhibit 6. And again, at State's Exhibit number 6, what are we looking at here?
So this would be the screened-in porch door. To get to this door, you go through that one to make entry to the main door of the victim's residence. Victims.
Go to the next photograph. This is State's Exhibit 7, and we're going to flip it for you. Can you tell me what we're looking at in State's Exhibit 7?
I want to say this was the living room area. When you first go into the door, to the right was this living room area. Back this way is the far right bedroom. Toward this way is the kitchen, and then the other bedrooms to the left, where Miss Taylor was located.
And so would this photograph have been taken from the front door, after having gone in from the screened-in porch?
Yes, sir. So this would be going into the main entrance door, the front, and you're looking everything to the right.
Okay. All right. If we can move now to State's Exhibit 8. And again, is this a photograph taken from the front door of the residence?
Yeah, so as soon as you come into the front door and then you're looking more straight back, this would be the kitchen area.
All right. And a couple of items here. Can you describe for the jury what's found behind this door?
It looks like it's a wardrobe, a purple wardrobe, and it looks like another one that's black with a red stripe around the sleeve.
Do you recall, did you ever go into the bedroom where Anglia Taylor was found?
I did, yes, sir, at one point.
All right. And then I see that there's what appears to be a yellow flag laying on the kitchen floor here in State's Exhibit 8. Can you describe for us what that is?
That's going to be one of the empty shell casings that we located inside the residence with our investigators.
And did y'all place that flag down there just to mark it?
I can't recall which one of us did, but one of the sheriff's office members, duly sworn, placed that flag on the for evidence on the ground.
Right. So that's not just something that you discovered in there, or something that y'all actually brought to the scene and placed to mark where the shell casing was found?
Yeah, the marked flag. We evidence flags. We mark them where if it's a large amount of blood or a shell casing, a knife, etc. Okay.
All right. And if we can go to the next picture, State's Exhibit 9. If you could flip that. Did you ever go into this room?
This would be the bedroom to the far right.
Okay. All right. I'll go to State's Exhibit 10. And if we can flip that. In State's Exhibit 10, what are we looking at?
So this was, like I said, when we went and cleared the residence, there was a room to the left where Miss Taylor was located. This is the bedroom to the right where I located, I call her LaTanya Taylor at the time. And right here is where I located her. She was laying down and rolling back and forth right here, trying to get, gasping for air.
Okay. And when you say, was she actually laying down next to this bed? Or I mean, can you kind of describe how she was moving?
When I first noticed her, to the best of my recollection, she was almost on all fours and would go from sitting up. I just kept trying to talk to her while I cleared the room.
All right. We can move to State's Exhibit, I believe it's 10. Flip that. Is this is just another view of that same room? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, pointing to the foot of the bed, can you describe what that appears to be?
So right here where I located Miss LaTanya, there's a large amount of blood right here on the comforter of the bed. Looks like a Dora Explorer comforter. Large amount of blood there, and this is where she was kind of laying down, rolling on all fours.
All right. And we can move to the next photograph. This is 2337500. Again, does this depict the same bedroom?
Yes, sir. Same bedroom. I remember clearing under the bed, going this way, seeing if anything was in the back corner, and I believe there's a closet You can't see it in this photograph, but there's a closet right here.
All right, we'll move to the next photo. This is 233-7506. Again, is this the Dora comforter with the blood on it?
Yes, sir. So this is just another close-up of where I located Miss LaTanya lying down right here.
And then, can you give us sort of an idea of where the closet might have been in that room?
The closet is a little area right here where I think there were some clothes. The closet door right here. It was kind of a smaller closet.
We can move to the next photograph. This is 233-7509. Is that correct? And again, is this the closet door that you mentioned with the doll at the bottom of it?
It appears, yes, sir, to be the closet door. I think the main entrance door would be right here, coming into the bedroom.
And do you also note blood in this photograph, or did you recognize it that evening?
Yes, sir. So there's blood on the carpet and on the comforter.
Move to the next photo. It's 233-7524. Again, this is just a photograph of the Dora, the Explorer comforter with the blood on it where you found LaTanya.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Next photo. And this is 233-7527. Again, you said that you cleared under the bed right here. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We can go to the next photo. 233-7560. If we can flip that, can you tell us what we're looking at in this photograph?
So right here is the kitchen area. I believe that's the back door, and there was a laundry room, or I believe a washer and dryer kind of back this way.
You mentioned earlier in your testimony that that you had noted the back door was ajar when you were first clearing the residence. Is that correct?
That's right. So right when I got the girls, I stepped in and kind of scanned real quick. Once you step into the front door, if you step to the right from that angle, you can see that there was a door back there. That's where I saw the door was open, and that's what was alarming to myself and the other deputies on scene.
Yes, sir. We can go to the next photograph. If we can flip that. That's 733-7566. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So again, this is, you go through the kitchen area, just to the left, there's the washer and dryer, and then the back door that goes to a back deck. And the door was left open like that.
Next photograph. It's 233-7629. Now, can you describe for us what we're seeing in this photograph?
So when you go outside of this back door, there's a little deck, and then there's some stairs that go down to this gated little backyard fence area. And you can see from the grass where most of the foot traffic is worn out, there's a door right here that leads out further back behind the shops in the backyard.
And you mentioned that there was maybe a carport and some sheds in the backyard, and appears also some basketball goals out there.
Yes, sir. So these are the vehicles that my partner, Deputy Shapcott, said was alarming, as well as the back door being open, that we needed to clear and double check. You can see several vehicles to the right, as well as a shed, and I believe there's maybe one more over here to the left.
All right. We can go to the next photo. 233-7638. And can you give us our vantage point here and what we're looking at?
So the backyard fence area that I was just telling you about, where the grass was worn down from foot traffic, if you're in the back of the house looking to the back of the residence, if you're coming into the gate, this would be your entrance to that gate door. You come in, there's some steps right here by the back deck, as well as the back residential door right there was lit up.
All right. Next photo. This is 233-7650. I believe we've already sort of spoken about that. And again, this is 233-8498. Is this just a photograph from the back of the house towards, or from the backyard to the back of the house?
Yes, sir. It's just a a further shot, if you were directly behind the residence, you can see the fence, the back deck, and how the stairs come down. And this is that gate that you just saw.
Next photo. And again, this is from the backyard. This is 233-8506.
Yes, sir. So if you're looking at the back of the residence now, and you picture the residence right in front of you, and if you're taking the picture standing on the back right corner looking this way, you'll see that there's like a carport right here with another vehicle under there. It's just a different angle of looking at the rear of the house.
Okay. We'll move to the next photo. And again, this is 233-8510. This is again from the back of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Move to the next photo, please. All right, this is 233-8540. Can you tell us what we're looking at in this photograph?
So directly behind the fence, that's behind the back door, the fenced-in yard. If you're taking a photograph of directly everything behind it, as I said earlier when I started scanning my flashlight, you can start to see the plowed field area, the plowed field. And this is that shed, and there's another shed right here.
Okay. And the distance beyond the shed that's kind of in the center of this, what did you notice while you're flashing your light?
So right here, when my partners were scanning this, when I was scanning with my flashlight, that's where I saw, from this angle looking this way, I saw 2 feet, about approximately 10 yards or so behind the shed in the field.
Okay, we can move to the next photo. And this is 233-8553. This is just a little bit of a closer view. And so can you again point out where you saw the feet in the field?
So right here, you see the shed. You can start seeing some evidence flags right there. And what appears to be someone laying down right here. If you look closely, I don't know if you can zoom in, but you can see one of the feet kind of off to the side.
Let's move to the next photo. And this is 233-8557. Again, this is another similar vantage point of that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's just a little bit closer.
Okay. And we'll move to the next photo. And in the previous photo, we saw the basketball goal. So again, is this looking back at the house from that basketball goal in the backyard?
Correct. So here's the carport, and then here's the back of the residence right here.
Correct. Next photo. And then this is 233-8669. And can you describe what we're looking at in this photograph?
So at this point, this was the third victim that we located, and he was wearing blue pajama pants and a bloody white t-shirt. His slippers were off, and there was a cell phone located near where he was laying down.
Okay, great. Thank you, Deputy. You can have another seat. So after responding and receiving or staying with Latanya until she received medical care and was taken from the scene, you assisted in location of evidence and then swept and eventually discovered the body of Sylvester Taylor, the third victim. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And on that evening, basically, you're a patrol officer. You completed your portion of the investigation and then turned it over to the investigators who would follow up with witness statements and things of that nature. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, Deputy Broadwell, you said that you had been with the Wake County Sheriff's Office since December of 2008, and this was April of 2014, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so at that time you had been, had you been a patrol officer that entire 6 years?
No, sir. The first, I believe, year and 10 months, I was assigned to what we call the CHOPS division, the courthouse operations, where we worked the courthouse. And then after the courthouse, I was assigned to the patrol division.
So for the first 10 months or 12 months, you were assigned to the courthouse?
That's correct.
All right, but for at least 5 years, you had been on patrol. Is that right?
Yes, sir. A little over 5 years.
And did you have, over the course of those 5 years, did you have the opportunity to respond to and investigate domestic violence calls?
Yes, sir.
And does that include custody exchanges, where one parent was delivering child custody or children over the other parent who had gained custody?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you see LaTanya Holden on January 2nd of 2014?
I did.
All right. And how did you come into contact with LaTanya on January 2nd of 2014?
We had received a custody dispute call where myself and Deputy Seda, who was assigned to the patrol division, but as a domestic violence deputy officer at that time.
And just more specifically, when you came in contact with Miss Holden, what was the reason why?
It was a custody dispute, kind of that with the custody exchange between her and the defendant to try to meet at Wendell Sheets and exchange custody of their children.
And so did you actually go to the Wendell Sheets and see LaTanya that day?
Yes, sir, I did. I believe it was later on in the evening.
And did she share information with you about the situation?
Yes, sir.
So who was supposed to be delivering the children that day for the exchange?
I believe the defendant, him or his parents, were supposed to exchange the custody of their oldest son. At which point, when we were there, we found out later LaTanya said her children were with her parents.
All right. So her children were actually with her parents, and the custody exchange didn't occur at that time?
No, sir, it didn't.
All right. Can you describe her demeanor when she was with you that day?
To the best of my recollection, I remember her kind of being numb, would be a good word. Just concerned.
Well, and again, you had experience in responding to domestic calls. Did you make any suggestions to her that day or give her any advice?
Objection. 4-3 reasonably stated previously in the Constitution.
Overruled.
And again, Deputy Broadwell, excluding any opinion you may have given her, were there specific things you mentioned to her that she might want to consider?
Yes, sir. So dealing with domestic violence, usually if there's what we call a 50B order in place, a domestic violence restraining order, the domestic violence officers assigned to that case or whatever, they'll seize weapons from that defendant if they can, and so forth. So I remember telling LaTanya with these types of calls and situations, I said, I specifically told her that she might need to invest in owning and getting her CCW or owning a firearm. Specifically, I told her a youth 20-gauge shotgun would be good to protect herself and her family. It's a good home defense weapon. And I remember telling her that.
All right. And did you ever see the defendant that on that evening?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Deputy Broadwell. I don't have any further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Detective Broadwell. My name is Jonathan Brown. I'll be just asking you a few questions. When you went to the scene that night, some of your responsibilities were to ensure the safety of the people there, correct?
Correct.
To tend to any of the victims that were there.
Correct.
And to make sure that no other suspects that were around. Is that correct?
Correct. Any other suspects or victims?
Now, you talked about that you put a flag down for a couple of the items that were found. I believe maybe a shell casing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. As I said earlier, myself and other patrol deputies and investigators, we were trying to flag any kind of evidence that we saw inside the house.
But one of your responsibilities at that time was not to collect evidence, correct?
No, we mark them with evidence flags. CCBI has to come in, they photograph everything, date and time, whatever evidence is located within that, that crime scene area.
So when you went in, so one of the things that you said is you went into the back sheds. That was sort of, I think you said, for all clear. Is that correct? to clear the shed.
Right. So to clear, that means to almost sweep, make sure there's no other victims, suspects, or any kind of other evidence that we might need or find to document. Like I said earlier, my partner noticed that was several sheds, several vehicles, and the whole time we were inside the residence, once we were relieved of inside the residence, the back door being open, it was alarming. So we took the initiative to do another check of their surrounding areas.
Okay,
Sweet.
but when you went into the shed, you weren't looking to collect specific evidence, correct?
I did not go into any of the sheds. My
Okay.
partners were clearing it. I was providing cover with my flashlight.
All right, so you never actually even went into the sheds, is that correct?
Later on, I did, but that initial part I was not.
Okay. And you didn't collect any evidence from the shed yourself, did you?
No, sir.
Okay. When you saw Ms. Holden, she was conscious. She was conscious. at the time?
LaTanya,
Yes.
she was going in and out of
Was
consciousness.
going in and out of consciousness.
Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to show exhibit number 1, state's exhibit number 1, which I believe is a picture of the front?
Yes, sir.
Sure. You want to pull it up
Yeah.
on there?
Pull up there, I can get copies of the photographs.
I think the clerk has copies of the photographs. Or
Can I approach him?
Yes, sir.
Can I just take a look at I just have a moment.
that's not the right one.
Yeah. No,
That's it.
that's the one you look for.
Okay.
Can I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Is this your patrol car?
No, sir, it's not.
Was that car already at the scene when you were there?
I can't recall. I remember a vehicle there, but I can't recall if that's the exact vehicle.
The front yard itself was rather spacious, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it was rather large with wooded area.
Okay. And the front yard, it would be possible for a car to park very close to the door, as this car is?
Yes, sir.
Or farther back?
There was a good amount of front yard right there.
Yeah.
You could have a couple of vehicles there, yes,
You
sir.
could have a couple vehicles, okay. All right. Turning to your attention to January 2nd of that year, you never saw Mr. Holden that day, correct?
No, sir, I didn't see him on January 2nd.
There was a time in January, do you recall seeing him on January 30th, 2014?
I can't recall that.
Do you remember, is this him? All right, sorry, I'm sorry, I was confused for a second, scratch that. If I may just have a second.
Yes, Your Honor. Just to be clear, and I think Mr. Brown spoke with you about this, it's not one of your duties to collect evidence, is that correct?
It can be, but when it's a more involved serious crime like that, our investigators take over from the patrol division.
Right, and so investigators take over, and then would CCBI typically be brought out to document and collect the evidence in a case like this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you, nothing further.
Nothing further.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time the state would call Deputy Shapcott to the stand.
Testimony you give, plead the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
24.
Mr. Wiley?
Thank you, Your Honor. Deputy Shapcott, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Craig Shapcott
And Deputy Shapcott, how are you employed, sir?
by the Wake County Sheriff's Office
How long have you been with the Wake County Sheriff's Office?
since October of 2010, so a little over 6 years.
Any prior law enforcement experience, sir?
No, sir.
Sir, can you tell us a little bit about what your duties and responsibilities are as a Wake County Sheriff's deputy?
I'm assigned to the patrol division, and basically we're first line. We're the first on scene for stuff and get calls for service, have to give people advice on how to go through civil matters, deal with crimes, traffic patrol, you know, kind of just about everything you can think a cop does. That's what our duties are initially.
And Deputy Shapcott, it is one of those duties to respond to 911 calls as well.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I want to turn your attention back to Wednesday, April 9th of 2014 at approximately 21:47 hours. And for those of us not familiar with military time, what time is that?
947.
9:47. On that date, sir, were you on duty, duly sworn, and so employed as a Wake County Sheriff's deputy?
Yes, sir, I was.
And sir, on that date and time, did you have the opportunity to respond to 1125 Lake Glad Road?
Yes, sir, I did.
Can you tell the members of the jury a little bit about where 1125 Lake Glad Road is in Wake County?
It's on the eastern side of Wake County, kind of Wendell area, Pool, Eagle Rock Road, and Lake Glad's going to be down off the left off Eagle Rock.
And so it's in Wake County. And,
Yes, sir, in Wake County, inside my territory.
And I think you said it's a Wendell address. Is that right?
I believe it is.
Sir, can you tell us a little bit about what the circumstances were that you responded to Lake Glad Road that night?
They toned out a call over the radio, so the tone grabs your attention, lets you know that something important's about to come out. Was dispatched to a shots fired call. I believe it was transferred from Johnson County, or because the location's close to the county line, so it got transferred over, but just heard that somebody had been shot and that the phone disconnected.
And based on that, did you respond to that location?
Yes, sir, I did.
And we saw Deputy Broadwell's video earlier in his testimony where you one of the deputies responding there as well, sir.
Yes, sir. We were sitting together in a parking lot talking about previous calls for the day or catching up on paperwork when the call came out. So we were with each other already and responded together.
When you arrived there at the residence, kind of tell us a little bit about what your duties were in clearing the scene as Deputy Broadwell has described already.
Deputy Broadwell was making contact at the front door to the right side of the house. I noticed that there were several cars, a few buildings. It was dark, and we didn't know where the suspect was, so I thought that, you know, I better scan that area and just hold it over there just to make sure that the suspect wasn't hiding out back there while Deputy Broadwell was making contact.
And Deputy Shapcott, when you did that scanning or clearing of that area, did you locate any suspects or victims at that time?
No, sir. I don't remember how far up I went. I don't recall how far up I went. It was near the carport, I believe, but I just had my weapon drawn and was scanning the area, but it wasn't like at that time we weren't going through the sheds or anything.
And you said you had your weapon drawn. Is that typical in this type of call?
Yes, sir.
And I think you described it as a shooting call that had come out.
Yes, sir.
What happened at that point, sir?
Deputy Broadwell had made contact with the children. He had ran them back to his patrol car. Deputy Evans and Pittman arrived on scene, and Deputy Broadwell gave them custody of the kids to keep out of the way for safety. And then Deputy Broadwell and I went inside the house to begin searching for victims and suspects.
And I've used the term a couple times, clear the scene. Tell us what you mean by saying clear the scene.
Clear the scene's just making sure everything's safe. That's job one. As soon as we arrive on scene, safety's number one. Make sure that it's safe for EMS to respond. Make sure it's safe for us. Before we can render aid to anybody, we gotta make sure everything's safe.
And what happened when you went inside the residence and searched?
As soon as you go inside the residence, it's fairly wide open with the living room and kitchen area. Deputy Broadwell went to the right side of the house, and I was just scanning in that area. And while he was in the back room, he hollered at me that he had a victim that was shot. And right around that time, in scanning, I saw a foot in the doorway, and leaning over, I saw that it was another victim, later identified Miss Taylor.
As Miss Taylor?
Yes, sir.
As Anglia Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And Deputy Shapcott, when you saw her, what was her condition, sir?
She was laying face down on the floor. Her left arm was underneath her body. Her right arm was stretched out above her head, and her head was kind of rested on it. And she was not responding.
When you say she was not responding, did you check for to see if she was alive?
Not immediately. I finished clearing the room, and there was a bathroom and closet off of the back side of it. Had to go make sure that, everything in there was safe, and then I went back and attempted to find a pulse.
And where'd you look for a pulse on Miss Taylor?
I rolled her over, and I went to grab her wrist, and on her left wrist, I noticed a bullet wound through and through on her left wrist.
Were you able to detect a pulse at that time, sir?
I thought I did, but it was later determined that it was probably my own pulse, and with the adrenaline going and stuff, so no.
Was she breathing in any way, talking when you first responded?
No, sir.
You mentioned that there was a bullet hole wound on her left wrist, I believe you said?
If I could refer to my notes
Yes,
to
sir.
just double check, I believe it was the left wrist. Yes, left wrist.
At that time, sir, were you able to tell if there were any other wounds on Miss Taylor?
At that time, no, I didn't see any.
Now, once you determined that Miss Taylor was non-responsive, what did you do then, sir?
After clearing and determining she's not responsive and communicating that with dispatch, EMS was brought into the house. I came back out and I told them, I said, I got one victim in here that's non-responsive, and we got one in this room that is responsive. So they came in to my room with Miss Taylor first.
Had you gone in the room where Deputy Broadwell was at that point with LaTanya?
I had briefly walked over there and glanced in, and I saw that he was down with her trying to render aid, and then I went back out to the main area of the house.
And you said that you don't have to clear the residence before EMS can arrive. Tell us how y'all work together, I guess.
Well, typically, like when he went to the right side, I'm holding security in the middle of the house. So while he's going out there, I'm making sure that nobody comes in from another direction and comes behind him. And ideally, after that gets cleared, he would come back out, and then I would clear this side, ideally. But as soon as he found the Miss LaTanya back there, he stayed with her, and I finished by myself because I kind of saw Miss Taylor in the room and away from standard procedure as far as safety, but did as safe as possible.
And at that point, EMS comes in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so y'all have to make sure the house is safe before they can even come in?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then I think you said EMS did come into the house, and what was your interaction with them at that point?
Again, I told them they had one non-responsive and one responsive. They went into Miss Taylor's room, the bedroom on the left that I had. I believe that they started looking for other wounds because they did not detect a pulse. Found another bullet wound in her left breast. They saw that she wasn't breathing and called it on the scene that she had passed.
Were you able to see the wound yourself, Deputy Shapcott?
Yes, sir.
And what did the EMS workers have to do to discover that wound?
They had pulled up her shirt and lifted up her bra to find it.
After it was discovered that Miss Taylor was deceased, what was your role at that point?
I asked everybody to leave the room so it could maintain the integrity of the evidence of the scene.
And why is that important, Deputy Shapcott?
Somebody could come through and step on something and ruin evidence that could be preserved or track it into other areas of the house, and just after everything's determined safe, and we just need to hold it until investigations gets there and takes over.
What happened next, sir?
I believe Investigator Weaver arrived on scene. I kind of gave her a rundown. Excuse me, before that, after the EMS pronounced Miss Taylor deceased, they went to Miss LaTanya's room and started rendering aid to her.
And were you part of that process, sir, or in the room for
No,
that
sir.
process?
No, I stayed with the bedroom that I was in to make sure nobody else went in.
And were you aware that LaTanya was taken out by EMS?
Yes.
Now, after LaTanya was taken out, what did you and the other officers do to, again, I guess, as you were saying, secure the scene or guard against tampering of evidence?
Started a crime scene log. What that is once we have the area roped off, other deputies had roped off the scene, we start a crime scene log, and every person that comes into that scene, you got to write down their name and what time they came in, what agency they're with, the reason that they were there, and then the time that they left the scene. So we started that and started doing evidence flags, just marking evidence in the house.
And tell us about that. What type of evidence were you marking there at the scene?
The shell casings.
Where were those shell casings located?
The ones that I saw, right in the kitchen, kind of right where the living room and kitchen joined together.
What happened next, Deputy Shapcott?
That's when I believe Investigator Weaver arrived on scene, and I kind of gave her a rundown of what was going on, and then we decided that we needed to just double check outside and make sure that there wasn't any more evidence or victims or anything out back.
Did you go outside and search the exterior of the residence?
Yes, sir.
What if anything, did you find outside?
Behind one of the sheds or barns, we found Mr. Sylvester Taylor's body.
How much time passed, sir, between the time that y'all arrived there on scene and when you were able to discover Mr. Taylor's body?
It was approximately, we got there at 21:55. I think it was approximately an hour later, close to an hour.
And had y'all been out and searching the exterior at that point, or were you focused on trying to treat LaTanya and securing the inside?
We were focused on the inside, and I mean, obviously something like that is fairly hectic for you to respond to, and you know, you gotta gain your composure and go through and make sure you got everything done right. And that's why after that scene kind of calmed down, it was like take a deep breath, and it's like, okay, let's go check out back.
And that's when you found Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
After you found Mr. Taylor, did you alert investigations and other officers that Mr. Taylor was deceased outside?
I believe that I called over the radio that we had another victim outside.
And was Mr. Taylor, did anyone check him for a pulse or to see if he was still alive at that point?
I did not check him for a pulse. I don't recall if Deputy Mackey or Broadwell did. He was lying on his back with his arms spread out and his eyes were open, and he was saturated with blood on his shirt.
So it was clear at that point that he had passed away.
Yes, sir.
What else did you do there at the Lake Glad residence that night, Deputy Shapcott?
After we discovered Mr. Taylor's body, I believe the suspect's vehicle had been located on Knightdale Eagle Rock Road, and deputies were out with that vehicle, and I went and relieved deputies and sat with it until the tow company could come tow it for evidence.
You mentioned a term, investigations. When you say investigations, what do you mean by that?
Well, we have CCBI, which does all the fingerprinting and processing of the evidence for the county. They do it for every agency in the county. And then we also have our own investigation division, who they're detectives and work the cases.
So that they're primarily responsible for the follow-up investigation.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall, sir, about what time it was you cleared the Lake Glad residence?
Can I refer to my notes?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if I have it in here. I have the time that I arrived at the 6800 Knightdale Eagle Rock address. It is a 3:49 in the morning.
3:49 a.m. That's when you went to the other address, the Knightdale Eagle Rock Road.
Yes, sir.
And what was located there?
The suspect's pickup truck that was previously described.
Okay. And can you describe the pickup for us that you found there at Knightdale Eagle Rock Road?
It was a older model Chevrolet pickup that was dark in color.
How far away is that Knightdale Eagle Rock Road address from the Lake Glad Road address?
Approximately 2 miles, 2 or 3 miles.
So in the same general vicinity.
Yes, sir.
And at Knightdale Eagle Rock Road, is that a residential area or there?
Yes, sir. There's houses. I believe there might be also a church back there, but mainly houses.
Besides securing the vehicle there at that secondary location, did you talk to anyone or do any interviews there at Knightdale Eagle Rock?
I don't believe I did. No, sir.
Now, Deputy Shapcott, you've described the scene for us as you saw it there that night. Sir, have you had the opportunity to review a video of the scene that night?
Yes, sir, I have.
And does that video fairly and accurately reflect or describe the testimony or illustrate the testimony that you've given here today?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Deputy Shapcott, I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes, excuse me. It states Exhibit 44, and is that labeled video?
Yes, sir.
And the video that you've had an opportunity to see and review prior to your testimony here today?
Yes, sir.
And would it help illustrate your testimony for the members of the jury?
Yes, sir.
To be clear, sir, you did not take this video, is that right?
Yes, I did not. I was not even present on the scene when that was taken.
Okay. Would that be one of the CCBI agents that took
Yes,
that
sir.
video? And I think we've mentioned the term CCBI several times. What is CCBI?
The City County Bureau of Identification. Like I said, they process all the crime scenes.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibit 44 for illustrative purposes.
Any objection? It's a,
Using the projector.
yes.
And if I may have just a moment to get it set up.
It's up in the carport now. It's scanning around to the right to catch the back side of the residence. And a view from the back side. Getting a view of some more vehicles and outbuildings that were in the back of the residence. And the evidence flags that we had placed down. You can see Mr. Taylor's feet at the bottom there. This is the vantage point shining back at the house.
And that was the condition in which you found Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
When you discovered him?
Yes, sir.
The flags that you see there, do you know what items of evidence those flags are indicating, or was that something CCBI had found?
Specifically, if I didn't lay the flag, and I don't recall which one, that one's obviously marking his slipper, but I don't recall who laid which one. That would have been where EMS came in and left with Miss Latanya on the stretcher out of that back door.
So they went out the back door?
I believe so, yes, sir. This angle would be taken from, if you just walk in that back door, the kind of laundry room area, going from left to right, showing the kitchen. So again, coming out of that room, going into the kitchen, and then it's going to pan over and show the living room.
And the door in the background, is that the front door?
Yes, sir.
That door in the background now, the back door to the residence?
This door?
The door
the first one? Yes, sir. That was the rear door of the residence. That's the door to Miss Taylor's bedroom. So initially when Deputy Broadwell was going off to the right, I was standing in this area scanning the kitchen, and that's kind of when I peeked around the corner and I saw Miss Taylor's body. This is a view from the front door of the kitchen, scanning to the right side.
So the bedroom of Miss Taylor's body would be to the left on this screen?
Yes, sir. And Miss Latanya was back in one of the bedrooms off of that hallway.
That the condition of the room is when you saw it?
Initially, she was lying face down, but after we had rolled her over and EMS checked her out, everything appears to be the same.
So the room itself is in the same condition, but Miss Taylor has been moved.
Yes, sir. But she was laying in that same spot. She was just rolled over.
And let me ask you a few questions about her position there. Her shirt was up, and she was on her back. That's different than how you initially saw her. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Describe again for us how you initially saw her.
She was in that same spot, but she was laying face down. Her left arm was underneath her torso, and her right arm was stretched out above her, and her head was resting on her arm.
So the condition we see her in here is after EMS has checked
Yes.
for life.
Yes, sir.
What part of the house are we in now?
I believe this is the hallway that's leading to the bedrooms that are on the right side of the house, where Miss Latanya was. So the view from the front door on the far right towards the back. I believe you can see the shell casings next to the evidence flags.
And let me ask you about that. Did you see the shell casings there when you went in, Deputy Shapcott?
That area, no, I did not.
Okay, just back in the living room area.
Yes, sir.
And this is the room that Deputy Broadwell testified a while ago that he found Latanya in. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And is that where you recall seeing her and Deputy Broadwell as well?
Yes, sir. Looking at a bolt hole in the door.
All right. After clearing the scene from securing the pickup truck, did you have any other investigative role in this case after that night?
No, sir, I did not.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Ms. Hamburger.
Yes, sir. Just a few questions. Thank you. Just to be clear, Deputy Shapcott, we saw that video just now, and Mrs. Taylor's shirt was pulled up.
Yes, sir.
She was fully clothed when you found her. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Lying on her stomach or side?
Face down.
Okay. Thank you. And you spoke about some shell casings in the kitchen/living room area.
Yes, ma'am.
To be clear, there was one shell casing in sort of the area between the living room and the kitchen floor. Is that correct?
To the best of my recollection. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just one shell casing there.
I don't recall if there were more.
Okay, okay, that's fine. All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Redirect.
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. Start on the next witness. Do you have further evidence, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. Karen Shapcott, Wake County EMS.
Do solemnly swear the testimony you give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if we just as kind of a standing request, ask that everybody be released from their subpoena from the state's perspective after they've testified, so to include Deputy Shapcott and Broadwell at this point.
All right. Would there be any objection to a standing request to that?
No, sir. If there are witnesses that we feel we may want to recall, some of them being on a subpoena and some not, we would make a note of that particular witness that we would want it, but otherwise we don't object to the state's request.
All right. So that's going to be the general rule then, is that once a witness testifies, they're released from their subpoena and are free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and tell us how you're employed?
Yes, my name is Karen Shapcott, and I'm a paramedic with Eastern Wake EMS.
How long have you been with Eastern Wake EMS, ma'am?
This June will be 21 years.
Okay. And you say that you're with EMS. Are you a paramedic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about the training and experience you go through to do this and kind of what your job duties are?
When I became a paramedic, training was a little bit different. We did have to go to school for a certain amount of time. In today's world, that requires a 2-year program. But you constantly have to do continuing education classes and keep up to date on the new techniques and technology and protocols that are constantly changing so that you can perform your work duties each day.
Yes, ma'am. And if you would tell the jury just a little bit about your work duties.
We respond to various types of calls, whether that be non-emergent calls, what we call sick calls. It could be from someone having a general flu or headache symptoms to something more severe, like in this specific instance that you guys are talking about, where there's actually a trauma patient.
Sure. And does Wake County EMS sort of have a system by which they, assign levels of trauma or the nature of the calls and things of that nature?
The county follows the national standard for what is rated to be a trauma patient. There are certain criteria. In this specific instance, she was deemed to be, Miss LaTanya, was deemed to be a trauma patient due to the fact that she had a penetrating injury.
All right. How does that affect your response or your approach to a call if it's a trauma 1 call?
If you are on the scene of a trauma patient, by our county protocols, you're supposed to evaluate your patient quickly and have them off the scene within 10 minutes and en route to a trauma facility, trauma-capable facility.
Right. And do you take patients just to the nearest trauma-capable facility?
Yes.
Okay. And your aim or your goal is to be off scene in 10 minutes from, I guess, making first contact with the patient?
From the time you arrive on scene.
Okay.
Right. That's when your clock starts.
I see. Well, let's move right to April 9th, 2014. Were you working and on duty that evening?
Yes.
Okay. And did you receive a call to go out to Lake Glad Road?
Yes, we did.
About what time did you receive that call?
The call came into the call center at 9:47.
Okay. And
we were actually dispatched at 9:48.
All right. Now, you say you're dispatched at 9:48. Were you actually at your station, or were you out on the road somewhere else?
I believe that we were actually just pulling into our station. We hadn't actually backed into the station yet when the call came out, so we didn't have to move towards our vehicle. We were actually already in the vehicle to receive the call.
I see. And so you were able just to go right back out. And where is your station located?
The station that I was at that evening is at Pool and Clifton Road. It's more on the Nightdale end of Pool Road. It's located in the Eastern Wake Fire Department's Station 1 building.
Yes, ma'am. And so you actually got en route at about 9:48. Is that right?
9:48. It was less than 20 seconds for us to get him around.
Okay.
And that would have been the call coming out and us actually looking at comments on the scene, recognizing exactly where we're going, and then moving towards the call.
And when the call initially comes out, I mean, what information do you have?
The CAD that's located in the ambulance actually will ding, letting you know that you have a call. Once you click on the call, you receive your information as far as where you're going, and it will give you sometimes detailed comments, but most of the time it's more or less a generalized comment of what type of call. And maybe because of this case, we did have security notes that were on there that they did not know where the assailant was at.
I see. And so do these notes or does this information come from the 911 operator, from the sheriff's department, or who?
It comes, well, it's kind of fluid. Once the call begins, the information is from the 911 call. As information comes in, will be updated. So if officers get on scene prior to us arriving on scene, then we get further information.
I see. So you have the benefit of sharing information with
Yes.
the other agencies that are responding.
Yes.
All right,
Once they've communicated to 911, then it's communicated back to us.
Yes, ma'am. And it looks like you actually get to the scene within about 4.5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Who was driving that evening?
My partner was.
Okay. Let's see. Now, there were 3 of you in the car, or 3 of you in the ambulance. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, just 2.
So it was myself and the EMT that was riding me that night, Charlie Honeycutt.
Okay. Stacy, were you the only unit that responded, or did another unit respond as well?
No, there were 2 units that responded. We were given information that there were more than one patient that was on scene. So the initial dispatch was for 2 ambulances. So myself and Mr. Honeycutt were on one ambulance, and Stacy was on another ambulance.
I see. Well, when you arrive at Lake Glad Road, what do you do in a situation like that when sheriff's departments also arriving and responding?
We actually got there, I think in the video that you showed for Officer Broadwell, the ambulance that was seen staging, we were actually there prior to them getting on scene, so we were staging at Eagle Rock and Lake Glad Road until the officers get onto the scene and provide us with information that it's safe, somewhat safe for us to enter the scene.
Right, so you essentially need the sheriff's deputies to go and clear before you can enter the scene. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And so that was done, and then you respond into the scene. It looks like about 1 minute after 10. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it says about 3 minutes later you're at the patient. Can you tell me what you did once you actually got onto the scene?
Once we were actually on the scene, marked on scene on our truck CAD, we got out of the vehicle, and we did notice that there were some children outside that were very upset. The deputies that were with those children, we asked them if they needed our assistance. They said no, that our patients were inside. We gathered the equipment that we were going to take with us. One of the deputies did, I remember him telling us to be mindful that this was going to be a crime scene, which indicates to us, make sure you look and where you're stepping and different things. And they directed us to the back of the property to enter through the back door. Okay.
And so you responded and provided care at other crime scenes before, and so that was sort of the only indication they needed to give to you was to beware to not disrupt any evidence. Is that
right?
Correct? Okay. And that's what you took it to mean?
Yes.
All right. So you say that you actually went around the back of the house and came in through the back door. Is that
we
correct?
did.
Okay. And where did you go once you arrived inside?
Once we came into the back door, my partner and I went left, which would be to the room where Miss LaTanya was at.
Okay. So you would have gone in the back door, walked through the kitchen, and taken a left in the family room, and
Yes.
back down the hall. And where did you find Miss LaTanya?
Miss LaTanya was kind of half on the bed and half off the bed, and she was kind of writhing around. She wasn't in one specific position, if that makes sense.
Sure. You were in here for Deputy Broadwell's testimony, is
Yes.
that correct? And so you heard him describe her sort of moving.
Yes.
Well, what do you do first when you arrive at the patient to assess the situation?
Well, first you're going to assess, are they conscious? She was conscious. She was very lethargic. It was hard to assess her level of consciousness because she couldn't speak to us. She could mumble. She indicated that she was having a hard time breathing. She could whisper, but she was not able to answer specific questions when I asked her how old she was, what her name was, those type of questions that we're going to ask to assess levels of consciousness with people.
Sure. And you made notes just as a part of your normal responsibilities. Is that correct?
Yes.
And essentially, do you see what you wrote for her mental status at the time?
As far as the Glasgow Coma scale that we had assigned to her, is that what you mean?
Yeah, under initial assessment.
The mumbling, not verbally responding?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that where you're looking? Yes, sir.
Yes. And that's how you found her mumbling and not
Yes,
verbally
sir.
responding?
Yes, sir.
And then you note that she appeared confused?
She was.
Okay. Well, what other observations did you make as you were, again, coming into contact with Miss Holden the first time?
Miss Holden had some blood on her chest. We found a gunshot wound to be to the left side of her chest. She had injuries on both sides of her face. And to me, it wasn't clear which was an entrance, which was an exit, but you could tell that there was the facial trauma to the left side of her face was more jagged than the other injury that we found on the other side near her ear.
Now, first, with regards to the chest wound, can you just demonstrate for the jury where you observed the chest wound, or are you able to do that?
I can't do that for you. I know it was on the left side, which was what I had indicated in my report. I can't tell you a specific location.
Well, it says
was it upper or lower?
Approximately over ribs 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm. So that would have been, if that's what I wrote, then it would have been right in this general area, 4 and 5.
Okay. Thank you. And then you say you observed 2 wounds on her face. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, upon your initial assessment, what care are you able to provide, or what do you do next?
The chest wound, actually the bleeding was minimal at that location. So as indicated in the report, a 5x9 dressing of gauze was placed on that wound. And the real focus at this point, since we were not sure where the shooter was, even though there were officers on scene, my focus was getting everybody, including Miss LaTanya, off of that scene. And moving us away. So we were able to assess her quickly, get a quick set of vital signs, load her onto a backboard, put her onto our stretcher, and move her to our truck.
All right.
And then continue our treatment at that point.
Well, tell me about the treatment that she received while in the truck.
Once we were in the truck and we left?
Yes, ma'am.
So once we left the scene, the vital signs that are indicated on the report were what were performed on the way to the hospital. We did place her on a cardiac monitor. An IV was attempted to be started. It was unsuccessful. And then we can do a better assessment of what the actual injuries are and if we find any more injuries. Her back was assessed and there were no wounds that were found there. She continuously indicated that she was having a hard time breathing. She did have good air movement. and nothing to indicate as far as her vital signs or readings that we were getting from her pulse oximetry or end tidal readings that would indicate that she had any type of pneumothorax where we needed to put a needle in her chest and decompress so she'd be able to breathe. So we were able just to give her supportive oxygen at that point.
Okay. And again, what time do you leave the scene with her?
All right, so we were at the patient. We departed the scene at 10:13.
And where'd you take her?
To Wake Med on New Bern Avenue.
Do you contact them once you're leaving the scene to let them know what you're bringing?
Yes, they had a trauma activation which was done at 9:14. So as soon as we got to the ambulance, they were notified that we were bringing her, what type of injuries she had, and an estimated time of when to expect our arrival.
I see. And when did you actually arrive?
We arrived at the hospital at 10:29.
When you arrive at the hospital, do you communicate at all? Where do you take her, and do you speak with some other medical personnel?
So when you arrive at Wake Med and a patient's been deemed a trauma, you're going to go into the trauma suite that they have there. So you'll be directed into that area and you meet a trauma team. So there'll be a team of doctors and nurses that are assigned to that specific patient, and you relay to those people what you have found, the injuries that you found, the treatment that you performed.
Okay. And Mr. Honeycutt was actually driving the ambulance that night, correct? And so
he drove us to the call. Where Stacy came on to my report is that once that crew, they were assigned to move to the right of the house after they had evaluated Ms. Taylor and were not able to render aid. Then Stacy became a part of my crew. Charlie rode with me in the back of the ambulance, and Stacy drove us to the hospital.
okay.
Mr. Lively,
Yes,
it's
sir.
right at 1. Unless you have just a very few questions, then we're going to go ahead and break.
Your Honor, that'd be fine. If
We'll
you
break.
want to go ahead and break for lunch.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess until 2:30. Please recall all the instructions. Don't talk among yourselves about the case or with anyone else. Don't form or express opinions about the outcome. No media or independent investigation in these matters, and no conversations with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. Leave your notepads in your chairs. Gather in the deliberation room at 2:30. Everyone else, please remain seated until excuse me, sir.
Sir.
Everyone remain seated until the juries have made their way to the elevators. That when the jurors are going back and forth in the hallways, that you make sure that you give them a great deal of space so that there is no suspicion or indication that there's any communication between jurors and any parties, witnesses, lawyers, or members of the gallery. If you're around a juror, please don't have conversations. It's very important that they just be able to go back and forth without having any contact or communication with any members of the gallery. With all that being said, we'll go ahead and recess until 2:30. Rick, we'll